We're going to begin our very first window display project. At this point, you should have your own pack of 24 colored pencils. That's how you're going to receive a free 5 points on this project. You're going to choose one color at the beginning. Let's go ahead and choose a color out of our pack. I chose magenta. You do not have to choose magenta. The colors that you're not allowed to choose are yellow or obviously white. Let's also not choose black either because we're going to do something with black at the bottom. So choose any color but yellow, black, or white. For another free 20 points, artist stayed on task with little to no correction from the teacher. Let's follow along with my step-by-step directions for the rest of the video so that we can receive another free 20 points. There are going to be two things that I'm looking for this portion when I'm grading. Did you use your small circle interlocking technique on the whole thing? Using your small circle interlocking technique is 30 points. That's a lot. Also, what I'm looking for is, did you put the correct amount of layers in the correct sections? We're going to start with our clouds. I'm going to go ahead and zoom into our clouds to show you that we're going to lay in one layer into our clouds. Choose a cloud, hold your pencil by the end, and start to gently lay in some small circles. They're barely noticeable. Think of it like scraping off little pieces of powder from the colored pencil onto the paper. Look at how nice and light my layer 1 is in this cloud. It is a little bit time consuming, but it's going to look really professional. I'm not scribbling. I'm doing small circles. They're very light, and the circles interlock with each other. Technically, it's probably like hundreds of small circles that I'm doing by the end of it. Here's an example of one cloud having one layer. I'm done with this cloud. Then you'll choose another cloud. I'm still only putting one layer of small circles into these clouds. There's my second cloud. It has one layer of nice gentle powder from the colored pencil. Moving into my third cloud, I'm holding down the paper. It's kind of tricky doing these small circles on the edge of a paper because it's going to want to try to make your paper bend. So I'm using my opposite hand to hold it down. And I'm steadily doing small circles, taking my time. Laying in one layer. Look how nice and light and even all three of these clouds are. They're all one powder layer. It's time to skip down to our first land mass section. There's a section that starts behind this hill right here, disappears behind it, and comes out the other side. We're going to put one powder layer into this section right here, where it begins and disappears behind this hill and comes out the other side. We start with one powder layer. So I'm going to start my small circles. I'm holding the pencil sideways, like with a tilt on it, by the end of the pencil. That helps me control how light the circles are. And that's what we want. We want one nice light layer of powder. I'm gonna move kind of fast. It's okay if you're not as far along as I am. I'll pause the video. But the goal is to have the shape disappear and come out the other side, and to continue with your layer 1. When I get to the edge, I'm going to hold down the edge. And I'm keeping my patience. That's mostly what I'm grading on, is do you have the patience to keep up with this professional layering technique? The technique where we slowly interlock these small circles. That's really what I'm grading for. Not if the drawing looks good. It's, do you have the stamina to continue with the technique for the whole image? So now I have one layer and it disappears behind this hill and comes out the other side. I'm going to now add a second layer to this, still keeping it light. I'm just doing double layer 1s. I'm pretending like the section is blank and just adding another layer 1 to it. And so 1 plus 1 equals 2 layers in this landmass that we're doing. It's slowly getting slightly darker, which is good. Not way darker, just slightly darker. It's going to disappear behind this hill right here, come out the other side. I'm adding the second layer to this portion. Second layer to this portion. It's okay if you're kind of behind me. I'll pause the video. Now to the same portion, we're going to add layer 3. And after we're done adding layer 3, then we're going to take a break. So you're doing a really good job keeping up your professional technique and having some patience. So going into this exact same landmass that disappears behind this hill and comes out the other side, we're going to add a third layer where it's going to get even ever so slightly darker than the previous layer. There you go. Time for a break. We're moving into the sky now. This is a very large portion. It's going to end up taking 2 layers to do this large portion. After we complete 2 layers of our same color, then we're going to take a break. So remember, be patient. Keep up with your technique. It's 30 points to make sure that it's all interlocking, and then it's 20 points to make sure that we're putting the correct amount of layers in each section. Our sky is going to take 2 layers. So let's start laying down our first layer. It is going to kind of blend in with your cloud because your cloud is only 1 layer. And that's kind of weird, I understand. But once we fill in the whole sky and start to put in layer 2, it's going to make your cloud pop. So filling in the sky with layer 1. I'm gonna pause my video and go ahead and complete this layer 1 because I don't have that much memory on my phone to record coloring the whole thing. I'm done with my layer 1. Now I'm gonna add a second layer into the sky. The thing to remember, do not get this layer into your clouds. So my second layer is going in. It's staying nice and light. I'm going to put it into the whole sky, except I'm not going to put it in the clouds. See how I'm kind of tracing on the outside, out and around the cloud? Another thing, you don't want this layer to get so dark that it's as dark as your layer 3. This is just supposed to be layer 2. So it should look like this box. It shouldn't look like this box. So I'm continuing with my layer 2. You might need to sharpen your pencil. That's fine. I'm making sure not to get it into my cloud because our clouds are going to stay layer 1 and our sky is going to be layer 2, or 2 layers. I'm going to pause this video and show you what it's going to look like when I put this whole layer 2 into the sky, but not putting it into my clouds. If you are now noticing that your clouds are still too dark, because maybe you kind of put them in a little too dark during step 1, you can take your eraser and kind of pull a little bit up out of the clouds to lighten them up. Because you want your clouds to be lighter than the sky. We're about to take a break. Not everybody has to do this step. You can pull a little bit up out of the clouds. So we have 1 layer in the clouds, 2 layers in the sky, 3 layers in the landmass that disappears behind this hill and comes out the other side. This is where we're going to focus on next. This section here that rises up and above this background landmass and comes back over. We're going to end up putting 4 layers into this landmass. So starting off at layer 1, I'm going to pause my video until I finish my layer 1. It's time for me to begin my layer 2 in the same landmass. Going from a layer 1 to a layer 2 in this landmass that goes up and above all the other hills. Sometimes circle the opposite way to help blend the previous layer in. Helps blend out those circle stroke marks if you change it up and circle the opposite way every once in a while. I'm gonna skip to the next portion of the video where I'm about to lay in layer 3. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish layer 2 off camera. Still in the same landmass, and I'm going to give us a break after finishing this piece. We're going to go into layer 3 now on the same landmass. It's going to end up matching the one above it because the one above it is 3 layers. Moving into layer 3 on this landmass. If you've done it right, then it's going to end up matching the one above it. Keep up with your technique. We're going to take a break after this. Well, after this section, we're going to put in layer 4 and then we're going to take a break. So now I have me a layer 3 and it looks pretty identical to the one above it because the landmass above it is layer 3, but here's where we take it to another level. We need to make this landmass slightly darker than the one above by adding a layer 4. And I'm going to add a tad bit of pressure into this layer 4. Not a whole bunch, but enough to where I can start to see a difference between this landmass and the one above it. I'm going to pause my video until I finish this part. At this point, you're going to notice something called a field of depth, where this is in front of here and this is in front of here. And we're going to move into this section with 5 layers. It's a small section though, we can do it. I'm going to allow you to do your layer 1 a little bit more like a layer 2. You don't have to go so light on this one. So this is kind of like doing the pressure of a layer 2. I'm not going to have you do 5 entire different layers. We're going to make it as dark as a layer 5. What I'm trying to say is your powder layer doesn't have to be so incredibly light for this one. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not very often where I ask the powder layer to be this dark. Usually I want a powder layer to be as light as your cloud. But because we're eventually going to turn this into a 5, it's okay to kind of make this one a little bit heavier than a normal powder layer. I'm circling both directions. I'm even going back into my old areas and kind of, you're using the pencil to smear. Not only are you laying down pigment, but when you go back over your old layers or your old area, it's smearing out and blending out the old stuff. So the small circles are doing multiple things. So this whole thing has some pigment in there, which is good because it's going to help have a nice even blend later. I want you now to just simply make this portion darker than the one above it. Turn it into a 5. I'm not going to make you sit and do layer over layer over layer. I'm trusting that you'll just be able to eyeball it and start to make this section slightly darker than the section above it, like a layer 5 section. So you can see that this is now darker than the one above it, and that means I've got something good going on. I want this one to be slightly darker. Technically it's not considered to be darker. The only way you can make something darker is by adding black to it or by mixing other colors into it, what we're technically doing is making this brighter, but it appears to be darker. It's brighter because more of the pigment is coming off of the colored pencil and onto the paper. So technically these areas are dull and it's getting more intense and brighter at the bottom. All right. I know you're thinking that we're about to now do 6 layers in that color, but we're going to change it up, and this last little portion close to the bottom of the paper, we're going to do 6 layers in black, or a level 6 pressure black. So I'm going to let you put in kind of a level 2 powder layer. Really holding down this edge with my opposite hand. Now what I'm going to let you do is the only time that we're allowed to put full pressure and force is when we're doing a level 6. We're doing a level 6 black. We have us a powder layer down first to make sure that it comes out consistent and even. Now I'm going to let you push down heavy with your small circles. You're going to fill this whole bottom piece up with heavy, small, interlocking circles. Make sure you hold down these edges with your opposite hand, especially when you get to the corners. I'm going to pause my video till I finish this bottom part. I'm going to choose a completely different color to outline to cover up this old pencil. I don't want you to worry about your outline color. If it ends up not working out, then you can always just take a black and go back over it. I don't want to see any more of my pencil, and so I'm going to cover it up with a totally different color. I'm even going to outline my clouds in the same color. I'm going to give you a tip for cutting out a tree. You want to cut a broad shape out. Don't try to get all detailed and keep it attached to the original paper. Choose a tree and go ahead and broadly separate it. Separate your tree from this big, annoying piece of paper. Now that we have separated our tree from the piece of paper, it's going to be easier to start cutting out. And I cut off really big chunks first. And when I cut off really big chunks, then I'll go in and worry about the small little chunks. Miss Rochelle, let's say I've cut out my tree, but at the very end, it has these white, lines still there. That's actually like a really simple fix. What you're going to do is you can flip your paper over to the back and just take your black colored pencil and just color what's left, like the white streaks. You don't have to overcut your picture to get rid of the white streaks. Just make them disappear with your black. Then you're going to choose a spot, and I'm going to do a demonstration of how to glue it, okay?